My child, this is not a coincidence. You did not just come across these words by chance. I called you into this moment because there is something within you that has always known you are different, even when you tried to fit in, even when you smiled and went along with what others expected. There was a quiet awareness inside you that whispered you were not like the others, and I see how that has made you feel at times, the distance, the confusion, the questions you never fully spoke out loud. Wondering why you think the way you do, why you feel so deeply, why certain places and conversations leave you drained while others seem untouched, and you may have tried to ignore it, to silence that part of you just to feel normal, but it never truly left you. It followed you into quiet nights, into long drives, into moments where everything slowed down and you felt that gentle pull again, and I want you to understand something now. That feeling was never a flaw, it was never something to fix. It was a signal, a quiet invitation that you were being guided differently. And I know there were moments recently when you felt especially alone, when things did not go the way you hoped, when doors stayed closed longer than you expected, when you questioned your path and even your worth, and in those moments it felt like nothing was moving, like you were stuck in a waiting season that had no clear end. But stay with me here. Because what you thought was stillness was not emptiness, it was preparation, and what you thought was delay was not neglect, it was protection unfolding in ways you could not yet see. Think about the time something did not work out, the opportunity that slipped away, the connection that faded. At the time it felt like loss, maybe even rejection, but look deeper now, those moments redirected you, they slowed you down, they kept you from paths that were not meant for you. And even now there are things you have not seen yet that I have already been arranging on your behalf, and that is why this message reached you now and not earlier, because you are at a point where you are ready to recognize it, not perfectly, not completely, but enough to feel that something is shifting inside you again, that quiet awareness returning, a little stronger this time, a little clearer, and you might still doubt it, you might still question whether this is real or just your imagination, but listen closely, that inner recognition you feel right now is not random, it is the same awareness that has been with you all along, growing quietly beneath the surface, and what comes next builds on this moment. Because there is a layer you almost missed, a part of your story that will help you understand why everything unfolded the way it did, and why your difference was never meant to isolate you, but to guide you somewhere specific. So do not rush past this feeling, let it settle, let it breathe, because the next sign is connected to something you have been carrying for a long time, something you may not have fully understood until now. Stay with me for a moment longer, because what you have been carrying inside you has a deeper story than you realized, and I see how long you have tried to make sense of it on your own. The quiet heaviness that comes and goes, the way your mind replays conversations, the way your heart holds on to things longer than others seem to, and you have asked yourself why it affects you so deeply, why you cannot simply brush things off and move forward like everyone else appears to do, and there were times you thought something was wrong with you, that maybe you were too sensitive, too aware, too different to fit into the rhythm of the world around you. But listen carefully now, because what you have been feeling is not weakness, it is awareness. It is a depth that was placed within you for a reason, and I have watched you navigate situations where you gave more than you received, where you showed up with sincerity and were met with confusion or distance, where you tried to explain yourself but felt misunderstood, and slowly you began to pull back, to protect your energy, to question whether being open was even worth it anymore. And that quiet withdrawal you felt was not you giving up, it was you learning. It was you beginning to recognize what aligns with you and what does not, even if you did not have the words for it at the time. Think about the moments when you walked into a room and instantly felt out of place, or when a conversation felt surface level while something inside you longed for something more real, more honest, more grounded, and you may have blamed yourself for that disconnect, but the truth is you were sensing something others were not paying attention to, and that awareness can feel isolating before it becomes guiding, because before you understand it, it simply feels like distance, like you are standing slightly outside of everything, observing more than participating. And I know there were nights when that feeling turned into doubt, when you wondered if you were falling behind, if you were missing something everyone else seemed to understand, and yet even in those moments, there was a quiet steadiness inside you that kept you moving forward, even if it was slow, even if it was uncertain, and that steadiness is something important, because it means you never truly lost yourself, you only pause to listen more closely, and this is where things begin to shift, because what once felt like isolation is starting to reveal itself as clarity, what once felt like confusion is beginning to take shape as direction, and you may not see the full picture yet, but you are beginning to notice small changes, subtle shifts in what you tolerate, in what you are drawn to, in how you respond to situations that used to overwhelm you. And those changes are not random, they are the result of everything you have been processing internally, every quiet realization, every moment you chose to step back instead of react, every time you chose to rest instead of push beyond your limits. And this is important, because the next part of your journey builds on this awareness. It asks you not to abandon it, not to ignore it, but to trust it a little more than you have before, even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it feels slower than what you expected for your life, because the path unfolding for you is not meant to mirror anyone else's, it is meant to align with who you truly are. And there is something you have not fully seen yet, a pattern in your experiences that will begin to make sense as you look back with new understanding, and as you stay present in this moment, you will begin to notice how what once felt like being set apart is actually guiding you towards something that fits you more naturally, something that does not require you to shrink or pretend. And this realization is only the beginning, because there is another layer just ahead, one that will help you understand why certain things had to fall away and why your timing has felt different. And that is what we are moving into next. Stay with this feeling a little longer, because there is something I want you to gently look back on, not with pressure, not with judgment, but with clarity that is beginning to rise within you. Think about the patterns that have repeated in your life, the moments where you felt guided to pause even when everything around you told you to rush, the times when something inside you said no even when it seemed like a good opportunity on the surface, and you may not have understood why at the time. You may have even questioned yourself afterward, wondering if you made the right choice, but those moments were not random, they were quiet signs that you were learning to listen to a deeper awareness. And I want you to notice how often those pauses protected your peace, how often those decisions led you away from situations that would have drained you or pulled you further from who you truly are. And there were also times when you moved forward despite that inner hesitation, times when you ignored that subtle feeling just to keep things easy or to meet expectations, and afterward you felt it, that quiet discomfort, that sense that something was not aligned, not because you failed, but because you were learning how to recognize what belongs in your life and what does not. And this is important for you to see now, because the signs have always been there, woven into your everyday experiences, not loud, not overwhelming, but steady, consistent, patient. And I know there were moments when life felt confusing, when different paths appeared and none of them felt completely right, when you wondered why clarity did not come as easily as you hoped. But what if that uncertainty was guiding you to slow down, to become more aware, to move with intention instead of pressure? And think about the people who came into your life, the ones who stayed for a season and the ones who drifted away. Each of them reflected something back to you, something about your boundaries, your values, your needs. And even when it felt disappointing or unexpected, those shifts were creating space for something more aligned, more genuine, more supportive of who you are becoming. And you may begin to see now that your path has not been about rushing toward outcomes, it has been about refining your awareness, strengthening your sense of self, and helping you recognize what truly resonates with you. And this awareness is growing, quietly but steadily, shaping how you respond, how you choose, how you move forward. And you do not need to have every answer right now, you do not need to see the entire path ahead, you only need to stay present with what you are beginning to notice, the small shifts in your thoughts, the way certain choices feel lighter, the way your energy responds differently than it used to. And as you continue to notice these things, you will start to trust them more, not all at once, but step by step, moment by moment. And this is where something meaningful begins to unfold, because as your awareness deepens, it naturally leads you toward decisions that feel more aligned, more steady, more true to who you are. And there is another layer to this that you are ready to understand, something about the timing of your life, the way things have unfolded differently than you expected, and how that timing has been shaping you in ways you are only beginning to recognize now. And this next part will help you see why your pace has been exactly what you needed, even when it felt uncertain or slow. Stay with me here, because this is the part where something inside you begins to shift, not suddenly, not all at once, but in a way that feels both unfamiliar and deeply relieving at the same time. I want you to look back again, not at what went wrong, but at what did not happen, at the opportunities that slipped through your hands, at the plans that never fully came together, at the relationships that faded even when you tried to hold them together, and for a long time you may have carried those moments as quiet disappointments, as questions without answers, wondering if you missed your chance or if you were somehow not enough. But what if those moments were not taking something away from you? What if they were quietly keeping something from reaching you before you were ready? Think about how different your life would feel if certain things had worked out exactly when you wanted them to, if you had stepped into situations before you understood your own needs, before you recognized your own limits, before you learned how to protect your peace. And as you consider that, you may begin to notice something gently changing in the way you see your past. Those closed doors were not final endings, they were redirections. Those delays were not empty waiting. They were building something within you: patience, clarity, resilience, the ability to stand in your own space without needing constant validation. And even the silence you felt, the moments when you reached out in your own way and felt no clear response, those were not moments of absence, they were invitations to slow down, to rest, to listen more deeply to yourself without the noise of everything around you. And I know that silence was uncomfortable at times. It made you question whether you were being overlooked, whether your efforts mattered, whether your path was going anywhere at all. But in that quiet space something important was happening. You were learning how to be steady without immediate answers, how to trust without constant reassurance, how to remain open without forcing outcomes. And this is where the realization begins to take shape, that what you once labeled as loss was often protection, what you once called delay was preparation, and what you once experienced as silence was actually space being created for something more aligned, something that would meet you where you are now rather than where you used to be. And this does not mean everything was easy or painless, it simply means that there was meaning even in the moments that felt uncertain. And as this understanding settles in, you may feel a subtle sense of release, a softening of the tension you have been carrying, not because everything is suddenly resolved, but because you are no longer holding your past as something that worked against you. Instead you are beginning to see how it worked with you, shaping you, guiding you, preparing you in ways that were not obvious at the time. And this shift in perspective is important, because it changes how you move forward. It allows you to approach what comes next with a little more trust, a little more openness, and a little less pressure to force things into place. And there is something ahead that connects to this understanding, something about timing and alignment that will make even more sense as you continue to stay present. And this next layer will help you recognize why your path has unfolded the way it has, and how it is beginning to come together in a way that feels more natural, more grounded, and more true to who you are becoming. Stay with me, because this is where your faith has been quietly tested in ways that may have felt ordinary on the surface but carry deeper weight within you. Think about the moments recently when you were waiting for something that never came, a call you hoped to receive, a message you kept checking for, a response that stayed silent longer than you expected, and each time you told yourself to be patient. But there was a part of you that wondered if you were being overlooked, if you had somehow been forgotten. And then there were the doors you tried to open, the opportunities you reached for with sincerity, the plans you carefully considered, yet nothing seemed to move forward in the way you hoped, and it left you standing in that quiet space again, asking yourself what you were missing. And I saw you in those moments, not just the actions you took, but the thoughts you carried afterward, the way you replayed everything in your mind, searching for clarity, searching for reassurance. And there were also changes in your connections, relationships that once felt steady beginning to shift, conversations becoming shorter, distance growing without clear explanation. And you felt that too, even if you did not speak about it, even if you tried to stay understanding. There was a quiet sadness in realizing that something was no longer the same. And in the middle of all this, there were evenings when everything slowed down and you were left alone with your thoughts, when the distractions faded and you felt the weight of it all, the unanswered questions, the uncertainty, the sense that life was moving but not quite in the direction you expected. And in those moments it could have felt like you were standing still while everything else moved forward, like you were somehow outside the flow of progress. And yet even there, even in that stillness, you were not abandoned, you were not unseen. I was present in the quiet spaces you did not know how to fill. I was in the pauses between your thoughts, in the calm that followed your questions, even when you did not recognize it as anything more than silence. And this is where your understanding begins to deepen, because those everyday moments, the missed call, the closed door, the shifting relationship, the uncertain path, they were not signs that you were being left behind. They were moments asking you to stay grounded, to remain steady, to trust that your worth is not measured by immediate responses or visible outcomes, and I know that is not always easy, especially when the world around you seems to reward speed and constant movement, but your path has been teaching you something different, something quieter but stronger, the ability to remain centered even when things are unclear, the ability to continue forward without forcing what is not ready, and this does not mean you will always feel certain, it simply means you are learning to stay present without losing yourself in the waiting, and as you begin to see this, you may notice a subtle shift, a little less urgency to chase, a little more willingness to allow things to unfold, and this is not passivity, it is alignment, it is trust growing in a way that does not depend on immediate proof, and there is something important connected to this, something about how your current season is shaping what comes next, not by rushing you forward, but by strengthening the way you stand where you are, and as you continue to move through this, you will begin to recognize that even when things felt quiet or uncertain, you were never alone within it, and what you are building in this space will support you in ways you are only beginning to understand. Stay with me, because what you are beginning to notice now may seem small at first, almost easy to overlook. But it carries a quiet meaning that connects to everything you have been experiencing. Think about the moments that felt slightly out of place in your day, like hearing a sentence at just the right time that stayed with you longer than expected, or receiving a message from someone when you were not even planning to reach out, and it shifted your mood in a subtle way, not dramatically, but enough to remind you that you are not as disconnected as you sometimes feel. And there are also those moments when you pause without fully knowing why, when something inside you gently slows you down, and later you realize that pause helped you avoid something unnecessary, a decision made too quickly, a conversation that would have drained you, a situation that did not truly align with you, and it may not feel significant in the moment, but when you look back, you can see how those small delays worked in your favor, not as obstacles, but as quiet adjustments, guiding you without forcing you. And I know there have been times when a sense of calm came over you unexpectedly, not because everything was perfect, not because all your questions were answered, but simply a brief feeling of peace that settled in your chest, even if it only lasted a few minutes, and you may have brushed it off or moved on quickly, but those moments matter, they show you that peace is still accessible to you, even in uncertainty, even in the middle of unanswered questions. And there are also small opportunities that appear in ways you did not expect, something simple, a conversation, an idea, a chance to try something different, and you might hesitate at first, unsure if it is worth your time, but these moments are invitations, not demands, gentle openings that allow you to move forward without pressure, and not every one of them will lead to something major, and that is okay, because the purpose is not to force outcomes, it is to help you stay open, to recognize that your path is still unfolding, even when it feels quiet, and I want you to notice how these experiences are different from what you used to expect. They are not loud, they are not overwhelming, they do not push you, they simply appear, giving you the choice to respond or to observe, and this is important, because it shows that you are not being controlled by circumstances, you are being guided through awareness, through small recognitions that build over time, and as you begin to trust these subtle moments a little more, you may find that your decisions feel less forced, your responses feel more natural, and your sense of direction becomes clearer without needing constant confirmation, and this does not mean everything will suddenly make perfect sense. It means you are learning to move with what is present instead of resisting what is not yet clear, and as you continue to notice these signs, not as something mystical or extreme, but as part of your everyday experience, you will begin to understand how your awareness is shaping your path in a steady and grounded way, and there is something that connects all of this together, something about how these small moments are preparing you for a larger sense of alignment. And as you stay with this awareness, you will begin to see how what once felt uncertain is gradually forming into something more stable, more intentional, and more true to who you are becoming. Stay with me, because something within you has already begun to loosen its grip, even if you have not fully named it yet. There are things you once held on to tightly, expectations, outcomes, people, versions of yourself that you believed you had to maintain, and slowly, almost without noticing, you have started to release them, not all at once, not perfectly, but in small, meaningful ways, and I see how difficult that has been for you, because letting go is not simply about moving on, it is about accepting that something no longer fits the person you are becoming, and there were moments when you tried to hold on longer than you needed to, revisiting conversations in your mind, wondering if you could have said something differently, done something better, changed the outcome in some way, but now you are beginning to understand that not every closed door is meant to be reopened, not every distance is meant to be shortened, and not every silence is meant to be filled. And this realization does not come from giving up, it comes from growing into a place where you no longer chase what is not aligned with you, and that shift is significant, because it changes the way you relate to everything around you. You are no longer trying to prove your worth by holding everything together, you are allowing what belongs to remain and what does not to fall away without resistance. And I know there have been moments when forgiveness felt distant, when the weight of certain experiences lingered, when the memory of how something ended still carried emotion, but even there, something within you has softened, not because what happened did not matter, but because you are choosing not to carry it forward in the same way. You are learning that forgiveness is not about excusing everything, it is about freeing yourself from the constant replay of what cannot be changed, and as you begin to release that weight, you may notice a different kind of space opening within you, a quiet steadiness that was not there before. And this is where your understanding of peace begins to change, because peace is not the absence of challenge, it is not everything falling perfectly into place, it is the ability to remain centered even when things are still uncertain, even when outcomes are not fully visible, and you are starting to feel that, even if only in brief moments, that sense that you do not need to control everything to feel okay, that you do not need every answer to move forward, and this is important, because it shows that fear is no longer guiding your every decision. It is no longer the force that determines how you respond to what happens around you. Instead, there is a growing trust, a quiet confidence that you can face what comes without losing yourself in it, and this does not mean you will never feel doubt again, it means doubt will no longer define you, it will simply pass through without taking hold, and as you continue to let go of what no longer fits, you are making space for something else, something more aligned with who you are now, something that does not require you to chase or prove or force, but instead meets you where you are with a sense of ease and clarity. And there is something just ahead that connects to this, something about how this inner shift begins to reflect in your outer life, in the choices you make, the paths you consider, and the way opportunities begin to present themselves, and as you stay in this place of release and openness, you will begin to recognize how this peace you are building within yourself is shaping everything that comes next. Stay with me, because what you are beginning to feel now is not pressure, it is preparation. And it may not look dramatic from the outside, but inside you something is becoming more steady, more grounded, more ready than before, and I want you to notice how your responses have started to change, how you no longer react as quickly to what once unsettled you, how you pause a little longer before speaking, how you consider your words with more care, and this is not hesitation, it is awareness growing stronger within you, guiding you to move with intention instead of impulse, and there is a reason for this shift, because what is ahead for you will not require urgency, it will require clarity, honesty, and a heart that is not weighed down by old patterns, and you are already being led into that, even through simple moments, like choosing to speak truthfully instead of saying what feels easier, choosing to rest when you would have once pushed yourself beyond your limits, choosing to step back from what feels misaligned instead of forcing it to work, and these choices may seem small, but they are shaping you in ways that matter, they are building a foundation that will support you when new opportunities appear, and I know there were times when you approached your life with tension, when you felt like everything depended on getting things right immediately, when even your quiet moments felt restless, but now you are learning something different, you are learning how to slow down without losing direction, how to sit in stillness without feeling lost, and even when you turn inward, when you take a moment to reflect or to pray, it feels different now, calmer, less urgent, more honest. You are not trying to force answers, you are simply being present, expressing what is true for you without pressure. And that shift matters, because it opens space for clarity to come naturally instead of being chased, and I want you to notice how your habits are changing, not all at once, but gradually. You are becoming more aware of what supports you and what drains you, you are adjusting your pace, your routines, your expectations, and even your thoughts, letting go of the constant need to compare yourself to others, letting go of the idea that your path should look a certain way by now. And this is where your strength is quietly forming, not in dramatic moments, but in consistent choices, in the way you show up for yourself day after day, and as you continue in this direction, something begins to align, not because everything suddenly becomes perfect, but because you are becoming more aligned with yourself, and that alignment changes how you move forward. It allows you to take steps that feel steady instead of rushed, to make decisions that feel grounded instead of reactive, and this is important, because what is approaching in your life will meet you at this level of awareness. It will require you to be present, to be responsible with your choices, to trust what you sense even when it is quiet, and you do not need to have everything figured out to be ready. You only need to continue building this steadiness within you, continuing to choose honesty over comfort, presence over distraction, and faith over fear, even in small ways, and as you do this, you may begin to feel a subtle sense of readiness, not as excitement or urgency, but as a calm, knowing that you are moving in the right direction, even if you cannot yet see the full outcome. And this feeling is important, because it connects everything you have been learning, everything you have been releasing, everything you have been becoming, and it leads into something that will make even more sense as you move forward, something that will show you how all of this preparation has been shaping your path in a way that is steady, intentional, and true to who you are.